What up, what up, what up, TAC listeners? This is Dr. Ray Daniels, and this week I am joined by the one and only Dr. Brett Jones. It has been a long time since he's been on the podcast, so we catch up a little bit. He catches us up with what he's doing, where things are going, and I think you'll enjoy it. We dive deep into some rabbit holes, but it's really interesting to have him talk about the difficult conversations that they've recently had, him and Dr. Lance and Dr. Jordan, and just the consequences of waiting or holding back on some of them, allowing other areas of life to take the energy and how that can build up. But then also the flip side of that is the massive potential that can come from having these breakthrough conversations and the clarity that can come from them. So I appreciated that. It was really interesting. As always, Brett gets real raw and goes for it. We go down some rabbit holes of some different topics of how chiropractors can develop and grow, and that special something between two chiropractors that are doing the same adjustment from the outside, but why are they getting different results? And we dive into the launch of Equinox, what that is all about, where it's going, the convention that is coming up, and the power of it for our profession. So overall, I think you'll enjoy this episode. And without further ado, welcome back to the podcast, Dr. Brett Jones. Dr. Brett Jones, welcome to the podcast, getting back on the mic. So good to see you, man. Excited to catch up.
Man, it's good to be back on. I feel like it's probably been at least a good 6 months, I believe, since I've been on the podcast, if not longer. So
yeah, definitely, probably longer, man. That last part of school, I was head down, just doing the bare minimum of trying to get these things out when I could, but definitely got away from our weekly or bi-weekly catch-up. So I'm excited to get back in a rhythm and have you back on regularly.
And congratulations to you now being out there in Reno, Nevada, beginning to serve the people. I know it's a long time coming and you're out there now, so big congrats to you, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. It feels really fulfilling and I'm excited, and it's just been awesome, dude. I trained for like a month where I wasn't able to see anybody yet, but like the month of October, got back on it, and it's just so fun. I'm so much evolution, is ahead of me, but to be in it and to be finally like taking some of these principles that I've learned from so many of our guests and conversations, it's like, oh, it's like really applicable now. I don't have to wait for so long to apply some of these. So I'm stoked for that.
And you're about to hit warp speed in practice now.
Right? Let's do it. All right, brother. So I'm super excited to hear a lot of bit about Equinox. I've just seen a little bit on social media, but yeah. Let's just do an update just about you really quick. Prior to Equinox, just like life, what's going on, family, work, recuperation, where are you at with everything?
So August and September were, you can even say July, August, September of here in 2018 were probably the biggest expansion and activity months I believe I may have ever had, which for those that know me, they're like, man, that's saying a lot because I'm usually pretty active. But in general, there's a lot that's taking place in a short amount of time. At this moment, I'm feeling really good with relationship to Kairos training culture and relationship, to our executive team. And there's been a lot of conversations that have needed to happen for a long time, which is, there's actually there's a lot here that I could get into. What are you most interested in, Ray?
Speaking of those conversations, I just saw that update with Dr. Lance, and just the communications between you and Jordan, some huge things that happened with that. Yeah. I imagine we may not go into the depths of that, but I think that's a huge topic in terms of like having those difficult, challenging conversations, even with the relationship that all of you had. Probably all of our listeners are like, it must be easy to have conversations between the three of you, but I think there's always room for growth. So maybe touch on that a little bit, what that looks like before we jump into Equinox, because I'm stoked on Equinox too.
Yeah, I think this is very important. A lot of what we teach, within these training camps is listening. And then also at the higher levels, especially at some of the facilitator camps within Kairos training culture, is themes of nonviolent communication and what it means to be a facilitator, what it means to hold space, what it means to acknowledge somebody deeply and feel what we feel. And so I think it's important to at least from my perspective, paint the picture of the unfolding of Kairos and relationship and where we were at, and give you some insight on some of the conversations that needed to take place in order for there to be a grand alignment of clarity so that we can continue to move forward. A lot of the reasons that projects or businesses or relationships die, or with every death there's a rebirth, but the death or the struggle or the stall, I guess you could say, of growth is because we're not willing to have the conversations that are painful.
Right.
And so let's paint the picture, I guess from my perspective of kind of the unfolding.
Okay.
So adjusting ninjas was a thought, an idea that came across in chiropractic school, and I started training on my own. I brought Lance, Paulo Philly, John McCarthy in, and we were training, in these side rooms and doing drop table work. And then there was, some workouts, but, it got real consistent and real structured my 8th quarter in chiropractic school. And so now we're leading consistent sessions twice a week. So it was like a Tuesday, Thursday at 6 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Nobody could miss, nobody was late type thing, and we went in, but that was the first time, we had the actual format and formula of having, you'd go outside and we do some form of circuit training. Then you'd come in, we're doing 49 breath meditation. And then we're doing, a dynamic, chiropractic charge up or warm up, and then we're going into whatever technique I feel like I had assimilated at that moment, so that we could all train a palpation, or we could all train a setup, or we could all train the adjusting strikes. And then from the next quarter, we allowed the first group to continue moving forward. So now we opened up another 2 days for a new group to come in. So now it's 4 days a week consistently. And then basically I did that until I graduated. Post graduation, I facilitate what we called Monday Night Ninjas for my first, I believe, like 2.5 to 3 years out of chiropractic school. But also right after that is when we had an opportunity to see if what we had been doing, with the training program in school would work in a 2-day camp. So we did our first Bay camp, and then we had an opportunity to take the work to Georgia. And then we had another opportunity to take the work, and this is where Lance joined me, was on that one of the first trips to Georgia. We called it Love Camp. And I think to this day, this was one of the most intense camps we've ever done. I don't know if we had something to prove or whatever, but it was, man, we blew people out emotionally, physically, you name it. It was insane. And we figured out started to get a little bit of a better formula. But in this initial union of Lance and I, what we found was this incredible synergy. That one, we believe that it made it a lot more accessible. That where I came in from a more right brain, creative, artistic, spiritual, esoteric, and yet physical training, Lance came in and would provide a balance point with giving people a little bit more strategy, giving people research, giving people education, giving people science, the educated mind, and a little bit more of the left brain. And so we would help meet a lot of needs. And not just meeting needs of others, we were meeting the needs of ourselves. So, he was able to find work that was legitimizing, the work that I was pulling in from fourth dimension, from spirit, from training, from experience. Because there's people, right, that can step into knowing, KNOW, from experience. And there's also people that can step into the knowing from education. And there's people that can step into the knowing from faith. So he was providing more of the education side. I was providing more of the experience side. And then there's this beautiful union. And so I would say for the first at least 2 years that we were running these training camps, that we were both willing to put in a ridiculous amount of work. And part of that is because when you're in the flow of really creation, which I'll take a quick, side note, is there's a difference between creation and ideation. A lot of people say that I'm highly creative, and I say, well, what are you creating? And I say, well, I got these great ideas for this and this and this. Remember, creating is things coming into this physical reality that we can interact with. And so we were in this incredible creative flow. And when in this creative flow, when intelligence and matter is uniting through this transmission force, that you work on this different energy. And I believe we've all experienced it, that the physical body seems tired, the mental, body seems tired, and yet there's something extra. BJ, I think, would call it that something. And so we were riding this adrenaline and also, just like we knew this work was important. And so we sacrificed a lot. We sacrificed not just time away, but we sacrificed a lot of nights and little hours of sleep and did whatever it took to not to mention everything that happened my first year in practice. And so there was a lot of things going on at this time. Yet we were feeling, I believe, just ultimate fulfillment with being able to bring a system of training that was, we would see what was happening with these students' faces, in their hearts, in their eyes, and in their being, that they were lighting up. They were feeling like they were being seen at a whole nother level, and that their needs were being met grander than, like, this is what they had been waiting for in chiropractic and yet not received, right? And so to be able to go provide a camp, see this awakening, like, fed us our soul enough to continue to move through, a lot of the physical discomfort. And so I would say, about 2.5 years in, 2 years in, I know Lance, and so Lance had graduated, and then because he graduated about a year after I did, he graduated, and then he ended up accepting a job at the chiropractic school as a cell physiology instructor, and now he's also new in practice, and now he also has a new baby, right? And I believe from my perspective, and I believe he could confirm this, is that that instructor position, because it was only like 2 to 4 hours of actual classroom time. But I think he was putting in close to 20 hours a week because he was a new instructor, right? So all the preparation, all of the meeting, the time being there, the office hours. And so 20 hours a week there, he's a new dad, he's new in practice, and he's, the co-lead in Kairos training culture. And so I believe, that was a thing that he started to need to slightly pull back from some of the things that he had been co-leading in. And so I feel like I took over a larger majority of the work that was getting done. And I was happy to, because that's just my nature, that if it is to get done and I'm here to be of service and live this purpose of, helping others connect to their inherent power, then, I was able to step in at that moment. And I knew that, this potentially was a momentary thing until, he got his, reached the unconscious competence in being a self-phys instructor, and that he wouldn't have to spend as much time in preparation and all these other things. And so I believe he ended up doing 2 quarters of that and then decided it wasn't a right fit. So, maybe 4 to 6 months there, I felt like I was carrying, a little bit more of the load. And then again, he decided to open his own practice in San Francisco not much later after that. And I believe, what goes into opening a new business? Like, I know, again, so I'm like, yeah, open a new business. I'll step in, I'll lead. And I just think over time that the both of us, so he would take, a momentary aside to dedicate energy to something. I feel like I would cover the majority. I didn't know if I felt like I was being properly compensated for the extra work that I was doing. A lot of people don't know this. KTC has never really been highly profitable. We've done this because it helps meet, our needs of contribution. I make good money in practice. I lose money when I leave my practice to go do these things. Now, like, again, there's a high potential return in energy in other ways. And also KTC has a potential to become more profitable as time goes on. Yet, the work and energy, if people only, if people really knew the work and energy, time and effort and portion suffering that has gone into creating what you see today with KTC. If you really knew what we have received in financial compensation, you'd be like, that is fucking insane. Especially when if you knew what I can receive from my practice. The Source Chiropractic will be $1 million practice this year, and
Nice work, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. And that's also taken a lot of work, time, energy, and collaboration. So yeah, it's just, so I think, I reached a point where I didn't feel like I was being properly compensated. Lance has reached a frustration point because often the way I do move, and I've received this feedback from a few people now, I move through this world very interesting, and it's often very fast, which means that people can feel like, well, one, a lot of people don't come to me with concerns that they have potentially about interactions or whatever has happened. They come to other people. So Lance was doing a lot more on the community building side, on the relationship side, where he was the safe place. He was the nurturer, the mother of this business, and I was kind of this father, spirit, creator. And so he was fielding a lot of other ways that helped the community grow, but I didn't always get to see. Right. And so I think he felt the strain, and also like if he would take us a momentary refocusing into other areas of his life, then when he would come back and he would see how much had been created, there would be a little bit of discomfort of like, how do I catch up and co-contribute? And how is it that I can catch up in trying to understand all the shit that's happening? So then there was like this gap, right, between us two as co-leaders of understanding where things were going. Also, I, as a visionary, have often made pivots, and I think that has left Lance with a little bit, his needs of security and safety not always being met because there can be a pivot point that hasn't in the past always had enough conversation around that. Things just kind of move, and then they're moving this way, and it's like what, Mick, we have a plan that we stick to. And then I'll go one other piece. I know this has kind of been a long run here.
That's a good update.
It's been a minute since I've been on, right? And so one other piece here is, okay, there was also a moment where, I had the idea that, it was something I call transcend. And I believe there was even a video we did in Kairos Training Culture Community about it. And what we have done, now being out of practice, being out of school for the last 5 years, is, there's a lot of students, mainly students, and now a lot more doctors are coming in that have gone through our training camps and have been a part of the culture and have, gone through some of the online courses or KTC special ops, and they're growing. They're growing with self-development. They're growing in their artistry. They're growing in their ability to connect and understand self and the bigness of self and how to better relate to others and communicate with all of this is growing. And yet what we have seen is they will either struggle in practice, right, on the business side, or enter another business system where they're learning, but they're learning principles that are out of integrity with what we teach in KTC. So whether that's manipulative sales or whether that's just language that is going, I don't say going against, but it's not a similar flow. And so I believe there's been a huge lesson there, and it's been hard to watch, to be completely honest. And so I was like, there needs to be a way that we can help teach business principles in a way that's congruent with all of this groundwork and foundation we've laid with Kairos Training Culture. And then the other listening that was happening in the community was also a need of balancing at least a physical representation of feminine and masculine. The reason I say that way is I do believe Kairos Training Culture has always found a way to provide a balancing of or a dance and a rhythm between feminine and masculine, meaning that we teach connection before correction. We teach the importance of finding ease. We teach the importance of building rapport and composite. We teach the importance of tone, which are all more weighted and feminine. Now, the training at a level 1 can feel more masculine in the actual strikes and in some of the movement. And I would say even at level 2, you move more towards emotional mastery because you're increasing your level of listening. But again, the movement gets more intense. So there's an increase in the masculine and there's an increase in the feminine. Whereas in level 3 training camp, I would say it's 80 to 90% feminine. However, just because we believe from our perspective that we have honored both feminine and masculine, from physical perspective, people see Dr. Brett Jones, man, Dr. Lance Von Stade, man, Dr. Jordan Fairley, man, and us three being some of the more prominent figures. Don't get me wrong, a lot of KTC lead facilitators, but mainly Caitlin Reimer being one of the sole female, is that there's not a physical representation of balancing of the feminine and masculine, which again don't really have anything to do with female and male, but people associate that.
Right.
And so when thinking about Transcend, which was going to be this business development, was we need to find a way to bring in more feminine representation, so that people could feel like they're being represented. And so we had this initial conversation, and the initial conversation was with 6 people. So it was me, Lance, and Jordan, and 3 females. And in that initial conversation, what we found was to try to create something from 6. It was be too damn. It was too many cooks in the kitchen.
Right.
And it didn't flow like we wanted it to flow. It had I think it was a good idea, but it just didn't come together the way that we wanted. And ultimately, that idea kind of fizzled out. Now, this isn't that long ago. This is just like 4 or 5 months ago, I think, that we had that conversation. So I want to say it was like June-ish, maybe May. And it fizzled out. And then like within a couple months, Devin and I, Devin came out to the Bay Area to sit in ceremony with me and my wife, and also Topher and his wife, and came to the Bay Area, and we all had ceremony together. And then the following week, we went to Tony Robbins' Unleash the Power Within. And so while we're at this event, and a lot, by the way, Tony Robbins is the real deal. I'm sorry for, it's so crazy that, I think
That's fascinating to hear you say that.
Oh, man, he's the real deal. It's crazy for me to even say it, because I feel like sometimes with popularity, we feel like if somebody's uber popular, that there's not enough mystique or uniqueness about them or something. Like, right, we'd rather kind of find the person that nobody knows about. At least that's kind of how I've operated. I want to find, the person that nobody else is like really that into. I don't know. It's just something weird that we do. I have never seen a better produced event in my life. Like, they knew what song to play when there was going to be an emotional breakthrough or whatever, and then how to incredible the level of detail that they go into it. I've never seen anybody with more control and influence than Tony in voice and presence. There was people jumping up and down for like 12 hours in the day. And the crazy thing was, it's so well oiled that he doesn't even go, because his vocal cords are so like jacked. He doesn't do day 2 and day 4 anymore, but they would play videos of him in day 2. And it was like he was in the room. People were just as in when it was a video than as he was in person. I've never seen that anywhere. Any seminar I've ever been, they play a video of somebody, everybody's see you later, right? They're not there. They're on their phone. They're doing whatever. No, they were in. And anyway, incredible. So amazing energy at this event, right? And Devin and I are at this event, and this is like one out of the group that all came together. This was one of the people that I really felt that I had a great synergy with, that I was kind of feeling what I felt with Lance when we first started Kairos Training Culture. right? That there was like, it was spirit moving through, that they were providing these, you can call it divine appointments where we would come together, and yet things were flowing in a unique way, and not just flowing from an educated mind, but they were flowing from this universal space that like we continuously, we get those goosebumps, or like something like would be said, and we're like, holy shit, that's deep. And so it was at that moment that we're like, this needs to happen. This blend of masculine and feminine, because if you look around the chiropractic profession in practice management groups, you don't see this. You don't see a lot of diversity, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't see different ethnicity leading much of anything,
Right.
and you also don't see a blend of masculine and feminine. When you see female practice management groups, they're usually exclusive to women. And then you see a lot of male-led practice management groups that are open to everybody.
Right. And do you think that's due to the too many cooks in the kitchen? Like they can't seem to find that synergistic effect of why that happens? Like just
I
don't want to compromise on those
paradigm.
ideas?
I think it's old patterning, and I think it's a lot of things. And so, what we wanted to be able to create is being able to find the equilibrium and this sacred dance between masculine and feminine, knowing that they were both necessary for people to step into their power, which is the Vesica Piscis, which is our logo. It's the two overlapping circles. And so people are used to thinking that in this dualism that they are battling, right? So like even good and bad, right, or evil and holy, like those that there's going to be this continuous battle between these two. Ultimately, there needs to be a union. So it's understanding and respecting the shadow as much as you respect the light. Understanding and respecting black as much as you understand and respect white. Understanding and respecting the feminine as much as you understand and respect the masculine. And so when you can find that, and you can have this dynamic, nature between the two, that is power. Watching a strong, brave black man cry. So it's like, that is fucking power. When you can be as vulnerable as you are strong, right? So that is what we need. That grand acknowledgement that these are both important, and there's a way. Again, this is for a reminder for those that haven't heard it. Masculine and feminine has nothing to do with your parts, right? Your gender has nothing to do with your masculinity or femininity. That we carry both energies, and when we learn to be able to channel, right, the whatever we need, or whatever blend we need at the right time, that is your power zone. So there was a need for this. And so, from that moment, then Devin and I both went to Tony Robbins Business Mastery. I flew to Wichita. She flew to Oakland. And it was honestly within 2 months, we launched Equinox. Within 2 months, a framework of collaboration. So this was another piece. It was not just Devin and I, but how do we also then bring in various, what we're calling lead guides right now, to contribute to business principles for greater life fulfillment. Now, the last piece, and before I go on just talking about Equinox, is part of the difficult conversations that have been happening between Lance, Jordan, and I, includes this piece of, there was an idea that came forth of Transcend that included multiple people. And then here, Devin and I go and create, this, and now we're inviting people in. And so in that creation, conversations didn't happen, with Lance, primarily with Lance, in a way that he felt he was included, right? In a way that he felt he was part of. Again, from my perspective, like it needed two people, right? It needed to have, people that were in great synergy and being led by spirit. And I can have all my own reasons, all my own perspective. But at the end of the day, Lance was hurt. And so at the end of the day, Lance didn't feel the same trust that he had before. And so these were the difficult conversations that we needed to have. I had ways that I felt that when, things were pulled back, and I felt like I was carrying, Kairos training culture for a little bit. And I had, so I had my own I guess, mistrust and frustrations and disappointments. And he had his own frustrations and disappointments. And Jordan's been trying to be Sweden, or Switzerland in between, like trying to mediate between us two. And I imagine he has his own fucking frustrations and disappointments as well. And so it's like all three of us had to come together. And I mean, we had like this text series that was a day, and it got fucking hot, man. People were throwing blows. And
so really quick, it's just like, I mean, you guys have worked together so much. You've had so much training on communication. Why, when those feelings were being brought up, that really no one was feeling that the space was safe enough to bring them up?
Oh, man. Yeah. I don't know. It's just another layer, because I think from the outside looking in, you would be like, they have great conversation. And the truth is, there is a lot of, like, when the conversations happen,
right,
we use NVC, this is what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
I believe I'm feeling this way because this need hasn't been met.
Right.
And this is what I need now. This is my request. So like when we are communicating, I do believe like you see a lot of that training.
Right.
But what was happening is a lot of these conversations just weren't happening.
And that's what
they were no longer a priority.
Right. And that's what I've noticed too. I mean, that's what came up to me, is just like the activation energy of those type of conversations when everything else that you've got going on, it's just like, oh man, do I have that energy to activate for those conversations to happen? And then the more you wait, that energy, you need more and more energy to activate it. And it gets heavy.
It's building. Yes.
Right.
That's why it's always better, to handle things as they come up. And yeah, so I mean, like that's what I'm saying. There's so many pieces that come into this, Lance had another baby, and then, so like a lot of the conversations that we've needed to happen is that there has been, because of the situations, there was a deprioritization of having these conversations happen. Because by having these conversations happen may feel like it's taking away from something else that's of a higher priority. And now if I need to add this on, that means my need of sustainability is not being met because I can't recuperate, because now I'm having these long conversations when I want to be sleeping or I want to be doing this, that, and movement or whatever else. And so, yes, when these conversations become less of a priority, then if these conversations don't happen, the needs that aren't being met because of that continue to build potential energy. Now, here's a crazy thing, though. So you see building a potential energy of something that didn't need to be that, yet what I believe and what I believe I've discovered is that potential energy needed to build to break through. So again, think about this universal timing, especially when we're connected at higher levels. Potentially the things that aren't happening are building enough energy so that they can have enough impact that we can actually get the aha. Because if they were small conversations, the shifts might not need to happen in the way that they needed to happen. But because now there's charge, it's like the great impulse in a chiropractic adjustment. You have a great fixation, or you have a great dissonant tone. It sometimes needs a lot of attention, awareness, acknowledgement, and energy for it to be seen. So it's the same thing in this, that there have been these like small dysfunctions, these small disconnections, these small distortions that have been happening and building throughout time, and they needed to build. They needed to build so that when the words came through and I could feel the emotion of somebody else, that they would hit me in the way that I needed to hear it so that I could feel it and I could really acknowledge it. And the same going back the other way. And so I do believe that for whatever reason, it needed to happen when it needed to happen. Of course, the preference is that it doesn't have to build like this.
Right.
But the beauty is now that it's happened, and in that conversation, there's trust now. Lance has felt safe to come in as an Equinox lead guide. And that means a lot. That means a lot to the chiropractic profession. That means a lot to humanity, because the vision of Equinox is massive. And I believe that this is the next step of awakening. So 4 live events, and we're going to do live events that have never been done before. A lot of people don't know this. I learned a very interesting fact talking to Jill LaMarche at Devin's event at the Big Idea. In Parker's heyday, they did the Madison Square Garden. So Parker Seminar, right? Parker Seminar, out of Dallas, Texas, the school Parker University now, but Jim Parker, who was leading the Parker Seminar movement, they did. I think the biggest attendance they had was 7,500 people.
Wow.
So again, for those that are unaware, like the next biggest event currently today is Cal Jam, done by Dr. Billy DeMoss, and they're right around 2,000 people. When Jill was head of Parker Seminars, I think he said it was like 2006. They did 5,600 in Vegas. But this isn't a number thing, by the way, because it's one thing to be able to throw an event and get a lot of people there and generate a lot of revenue that you can do a lot of good with. It's another thing for how deep you are taking people in the experience to collectively awaken consciousness, for them now to go back into their community and to be those lighthouses and to be those vibrant beings that allow other people to wake up around them, so that we can really be living the lives that we see in our mind's eye when we think about our ideal. So that's what Equinox is bringing. We're going to bring the volume because we have so much dynamicness in our group, and influencers and people of power and attractiveness and all of this. And we're going to do it through the transformation of exercises that we've built within Kairos training culture. Kairos training culture ultimately is providing shamanistic experiences. And I'd love to actually go in on what the hell that means, if that's cool.
Let's do it. It seems gonna be, some people are going to be like, well, shamanistic, where are we going?
So the word shaman is taboo in Western culture because nobody has a clue of what the fuck a shaman is. They just make assumptions.
Right. It just has that woo-woo connotation in Western culture.
So let's go into what a shaman is, or what a shamanistic experience. We'll start with what a shaman is. A shaman is one that helps provide an environment and or experience that allows you to experience more of yourself. That's it. And there's shamanistic breath work. There's shamanistic ritual, routine. There's shamanistic medicine. There's a lot of different ways to facilitate that. If you're entering an altered state of consciousness, meaning entering and breaking patterning of addiction to what you perceive as your physical reality, then you're having a shamanistic experience. So if you're doing Wim Hof breathing, and you start to feel a buzz, and you start to feel different than you ordinarily feel, and you're having what Stanislav Grof would call an unordinary state of consciousness, or an altered state of consciousness, that's part of a shamanistic experience. A shamanistic experience does not need to be had with shaman, right? So that's the big difference. And from what I'm reading, based on Toltec wisdom, which is pre-Mayan or pre-Amazonian wisdom, Toltec wisdom, is like a big difference often between religion and or shamanism, especially as told by the Toltecs, is in religion you'll often find that there needs to be an intermediary, meaning that there's a Bible or a religious text to teach you about God, or there's a preacher or a pope to teach you about God, and that you're using those tools to then to learn about God. The shamanistic experience and or shaman clears the intermediary. Your goal is to experience God, right? So, and when I say experience God, you can just go back to having a spiritual experience, or you can just go back to also entering altered state of consciousness. For a spiritual experience, in order to have a spiritual experience, you have to have an altered state of consciousness because you're no longer in the dominant consciousness that you're usually operating in.
So that altered state of consciousness allows you to have this reset, this disorganization for a second, to organize at a higher level.
It allows you to connect to the bigness of who you are.
Yeah.
We are not, I mean, it's been said multiple times in multiple ways, we are not a physical being having spiritual experiences. We are a spiritual being having a physical experience. So who are we? We're an infinite source right now feeling individual. What helps us feel individual? Ego. Ego in mind is the separator that allows you to feel like this is individual.
Right, and there seems to be a harmonious balance between that, right? If you go too far down that rabbit hole, you can think everything's about you. But you're right, you need to have that experience in this world. But at the same time, you want to have moments of like dissolution of the ego to realize you're just part of the whole, you know?
So we've been talking about Equinox. We've been talking about the dance, right? Between the masculine and feminine. There's another dance between ego and spirit. Both are necessary. Why are we here for a human experience? Dr. Marvin Tosky says there's 2 reasons that we're here for the human experience, right? To experience this physical being. We are here to feel what it feels like to give like God. That's a big statement that a lot of people are like, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Feel what it feels like to give like God. In allness or oneness, when you are all powerful, all knowing, all wise, in your unlimited infinite state, there is no other. So you have no experience of giving to other. So by being individual, now you have experience to feel what it feels like to give like to someone else, to give like God gives. So you have to have an individual experience to be able to feel that. The second reason we're here is to receive only as a result of effort. In your unlimited infinite state, all powerful, nothing is efforted. I think about it, there it is. I want to create this, there it is. I want to have this feeling in this dimension and whatever reality, there it is. Here in the human experience, we receive as a result of effort. Now here's a beautiful thing. How many people often use this phrase? Man, why has life got to be so hard? If you think about it and you have this understanding of these deep spiritual truths from Dr. Tosky, that's why we're here. If you're efforting, you're living. Now change your perception of why life has to be so hard, and damn, I'm grateful that I get the opportunity to effort. And what you realize is that all suffering is due to misperception. So if we shift the perception, we don't have to suffer anymore.
That was one of the biggest takeaways. I think I heard you on another video. Say that one more time. All suffering is due to a misperception.
Misperception. All suffering is due to misperception, meaning that we are misperceiving what we are experiencing, and that's why we are suffering.
Yeah. Because
all pain and challenge can be a lesson.
Right. Yeah, and I've heard that too, of just like you have 100% control of your life because you're able to perceive the effects of it. You get to put meaning to it, and you have control of that.
Yes.
And it's empowering. I dig that.
So let's bring it back to why the hell we went down this rabbit hole. Why we went down this rabbit hole was talking about shamanistic experience and what is a shaman, and not to be scared of those words because you can give them other names, but ultimately, are you allowing yourself to reconnect to spirit? Are you allowing yourself to know that you are also that? And I believe, as this new dawn of consciousness is moving forth, because, these conversations are a lot more people are able to understand these conversations very quickly. And what would have taken people like that lesson just alone, what we just dropped in this last maybe 10 minutes, would have taken somebody a lifetime to understand. If you go back to medieval times or different times, like there is actually a new dawn of consciousness of people awakening that are better able to understand some of these concepts very quickly. And so with that, Equinox in the live events is also going to be able to provide a space of self-discovery and the bigness of self. So not just volume and you sitting in a chair, but you being activated, you moving, you meditating, you breathing, you interacting, you integrating. So bringing what we've all, what we've all wanted. And here's the thing. In business, I can give you the things to do. I can give you the script, but there is something that separates person A from person B. Even if they're doing the same exact shit. We got to be talking more about that something, that X factor. And that comes from a place of beingness. How much have you cleared your own interferences How much self-work have you done? How much clarity are you speaking with or envisioning? How much certainty do you have in your voice? And when you communicate your message and when you provide your recommendations, that shit matters more than anything. Who you be, not what you do, who you be. Because when you be who you be, and that's empowered, everything you do is empowered. Everything you do carries weight. And that's why we train. What's the difference between person A and B delivering a similar looking adjustment at a similar place to a similar condition, but person A getting much different results than person B? It's who you be.
I love that, brother. That's a huge takeaway. And like you said, instead of just the scripts and, how to manipulate or use tactics and words that, yes, they're proven to show results. Like, to me, it's just an unsustainable place to come from. Like, you could do that for a while, but then it's like, is that really fulfilling, like, your being and how you're communicating, how you're adjusting relationships with your team, relationships with your family? It's just like, it's such a different space to come from. And so many chiropractors are just focused on that external stuff. Right? Because that's the perception, is like that's all the stuff we have to work on, and I think it gets away from the inner work, that constant training. Tony
Robbins has a quote, right?
Yeah.
Success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And that's what happens, like you said, when you're working on those superficial things that feel like might be bringing you quote unquote success. But at the end of the day, if it's not connected to your purpose, if you're not fulfilled, if you're not meeting your higher needs of growth and contribution, what's it worth? And the only way you're going to discover that is by continuing to increase your awareness and consciousness. The only way you're going to increase your awareness and consciousness is to do the work, the self-work.
And the biggest thing that you found with this self-work includes these, like a shamanistic experience. Altered state of consciousness.
Continual reconnection to spirit. To continually reconnect to spirit, one must be willing to enter altered states of consciousness. That can happen through movement, breath work, meditation, visualization, oftentimes polarities of extremes. So oxygen deprivation, food deprivation, so fasting, sleep deprivation. I mean, there's many, many ways to have experiences that allow you to go 10% or more outside of your comfort zone so that you can expand, get the insight, and then the other piece is being supported to help integrate. And so that's why there's an Equinox membership. So ultimately, what you're going to do is you're going to come to these live events. And in these live events, you're going to have massive breakthroughs, massive openings, massive awakenings, massive activations. And then there's a group that we're going to continue to weekly have activations, weekly have a Q&A, weekly have support, be able to ask for help, be able to ask questions. But this will continue to move through you. This is where you're also going to get the strategy, right? So the strategy for running a successful business and or practice. And so all of that, so yes, come into place, get blown wide open to have a higher level of reorganization, and then feel support in your integration as you move forth in a collaborative community that is a sacred space and a safe place for evolution.
Good shit, brother. That's exciting, man. Stoked. All right, so
in the show notes, I imagine we'll mention this Equinox membership. I want to talk about our first live event, because here it goes.
Let's do it.
For those of you that were at the Artful Convention last year, this December or winter event is going to be as close to the Artful Convention as the Artful Convention can be, just to me, plus. So our first event is going to be December 15th, full day Saturday in Pleasanton, California. So basically going 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. is what we're looking at. And this is December 15th in Pleasant on the Alameda Fairgrounds. We got this warehouse space that we're going to deck out. I got a DJ flying in from New York, Noah B. who's also the wave type of style that the Jedi laid down last year at the Artful Convention. I got Daniel D. Piazza coming in to teach a 2-hour workshop on wielding power, who's an amazing, incredible resource and ally for us in development. We got all of our Equinox lead guides. We got Willie, hopefully Hampui medicine hats coming back. And so the vendors, of course, some of the most amazing artists in the chiropractic profession will be there. And so for those that remember the space that was created just earlier this year in January with the adjustments that were taking place, the breakthroughs, the emotion, the everything. I remember we finished on Sunday and people didn't leave, right? We finished like at noon on Sunday. People were there to 4 p.m. Mm-hmm. It's just like this space that had been created. I just got off the phone with Ben Collar, who's the one who led what we call the SET, the Sacred Experience Theatrics, where we came together and created the Art of Peace. And he's coming back. Nice. So there's going to be some absolutely incredible experiences to be had. A one-day event. If you're an Equinox member, we're having a special Friday event on the evening. So special Friday event for the Equinox members. If you're not a member yet, but you want to come check out what the hell I'm talking about, this will be the showcase, the introduction to what Equinox will become for live events. And then they're just going to get bigger and better. More production, more awakening, more opening, more support. So I'm excited, man.
I love it, man. So now is it open right now, or is it starting with this event?
So Equinox membership is currently open.
Okay.
We've taught 5 lessons. So we've been open. We'll be in we had our 5 lessons. We'll be in our 6th week next week. And we opened September 22nd, which is the fall equinox. And the first live event will be, you'll see a lot bigger push for members. So you'll see a lot more members come in, I believe, after the first live event. But yeah, we're open right now. So we're doing activations. Activations always has 2 guides coming together. This upcoming Monday will be Devin and I. And then we do on Wednesday, we do the Q&A. On Tuesday, we have some questions that allow for self-discovery. We call it the exploration. Right now, we're in the emotional season, and so we're really working on relationships and communication. We've been talking a lot about referrals. We have crafted something called the referral packet that was inspired by Dr. Lona Cook. We've got tons of strategy, tons of way to build community, to increase your retention, to increase your referrals, to increase, just increase your you name it, right? That we're going to move into having a very successful business, again, so we can have impact. Impact. That's what it's just about. Yep. Currency and money is a potential energy that people can use to create impact. That's what it is. Right. And so, we need you to be successful in business so we can create impact and we can create shift in this world.
Exactly. Dude, I'm excited. That's awesome. This has been a really fun interview, fun conversation, getting caught back up. Anything else that you want to leave our listeners with before we jump off?
Level 3 is coming up in Atlanta, Georgia, which is November 16th through 18th. November 16th through 18th. So we're about 3 weeks away right now. Excited to dive deep in that one as well. And then other than that, if anybody has any questions, comments, whatever, y'all can reach out to us at Kairos Training Culture at gmail.com, I believe it is, unless Jordan set up another email. Or reach out to me on social media. So whether it be YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram at Dr. Brett Jones, or send me an email at drbrettjones1, which is the number 1 at gmail.com. And I imagine we can provide some of those resources within the show notes.
Yeah, definitely. So we'll put that all in the show notes, and we'll have links to different things. Is that the best place to get started with Equinox, is just through contacting you guys, or do you guys have a Facebook page or like anything going there?
For those that are wanting to join Equinox membership, you're going to go to www.equinox.com/membership. So www.equinox.com/membership, and we will also have a referral link that will be included in the show notes.
All right, everybody. One quick change for the Equinox event. It is going to be March 23rd of 2019 instead of December 15th this year. Again, the show notes will have the referral link for the event. and the website will be down there as well. So again, the event has been moved to March 23rd, 2019 instead of December 15th of this year. All right, TAC listeners, if you enjoy this one, head over to iTunes or Stitcher so you can subscribe to the podcast and get an automatic download of our newest episode each and every week. While you're at it, we would love a review, a comment, a rating, anything that will allow us to reach more docs and more students and continue to raise the bar in chiropractic performance training. If you haven't yet checked out the artfulchiropractor.com, you can do that for show notes for this episode and previous ones, along with any of the resources that our docs are dropping. And if you haven't yet checked out the Kairos Training Culture Community Facebook page, you have to get there, send a request with a message of who you are and why you want to be a part of the group, because there are so many amazing golden nuggets that are being dropped every single day that are elevating the chiropractic performance game. So with that, I hope you all have an amazing rest of your week as always, and until next time, peace.